we are picking up at Amar of Yitzchak Bar Shmuel, which is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 lines up from the bottom. Our shir this morning is dedicated by Bennett Goldberg, and there's a chusah for the Fore for Asher Paretz Ben Fega Rezel. We hope that in the merit of Talmud Torah, Asher Paretz, together with Kol Choli Yisrael, has a complete and enduring refuah. So we'll say, let's begin. Getting back a little bit into some of the details regarding Gid Hanash, really fascinating Gemara. So Amar Yitzchak Bar Shmuel Bar Marit Amarav. Lo Asra Torah, Ela Knukanos Shebo. We'll say, when we Asr Gid Hanasha, so what is Asr as part of Gid Hanasha? Only what we call the Knukanos. So if you look at Rashi says Knukanos are Gidin Dakin, Ha'ochin Be'erech HaYerech. So we'll say, this is referring to almost like the small little offshoot sinews of the Gid Hanasha that go throughout the length of the thigh, Tachas HaBasar, underneath the flesh, Megid HaChitzon Legid HaPnimi, the Hein HaAsurin Lefi Shehin Rakin V'nosnin Tam. Aval Gid Atzmo Shehu Berosh HaShofi Kashu Ve'ez Ba'amu. So this is actually very interesting. Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Shmuel says as follows: when the Torah answers Gid Hanasha, it's actually only answering the small edible offshoots of the Gid Hanasha. The Gid itself is actually inedible and is considered to be like eitz, like wood, and therefore again not subject to there's no Isser Achila. The Isser Achila in Gid Hanasha goes on the edible, softer offshoots. Ula disagrees and he says no. Eitzu, while it is true that the Gid Hanasha is like wood, i.e. it's not really, you could eat it, but it has no flavor, it's not really so edible. Nevertheless, even though it's Eitzu, the Torah chayva alav. But nevertheless, the Torah actually says that halacha l'maisa, you are chayiv for eating it. Amar Abaye. So we'll say fundamental machlokes as to the nature of the Isser of Gid. Amar Abaye says, Kavase du'ula mistabra. It would appear to be, right, so that it would appear that the position of Ula is correct. The Amar Rav Sheshes, Amar Ravasi, Chutin shebechelev asurin. So we'll say if Sheshes said name Ravasi, Chutin, I will say Chutin refers to what we call the thin nerves and blood vessels. This is going to come up a variety of times. So the thin nerves and blood vessels, Ravasi says, that are in the chelev, they will say are in the forbidden fats, asurin. Ultimately, again, will be asur like the chelev itself. But yet, ultimately, again, one is not chayiv for them. Now, I'll say, look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi says, "Chutin shebechelev kigon chuti aksalim v'gam bechelev she'ala karav yesh chutin dakin." So, we'll say that's very interesting. What about the blood vessels and the nerves within the actual chelev itself? So, you have Rav Asi telling me that it's asur, but what? But I'm not chayiv if I eat them. So, we'll say, what does that mean? It's asur, but I'm not chayiv if I eat it. It's asur midrabanan. It's asur midrabanan. Alma, so we'll say, what do you see from here? Alma, chelev amrachman v'lo chutin. So we'll say, what you see over here is the Torah asers chelev and not chutin. Right? The Torah says when we aser chelev, chelev means the actual fat itself, but not the blood vessels or the nerves which may run through it. Hachanami, gid amrachmana v'lo knukana. So we'll say, so therefore again, Ula's position is, therefore when the Torah asers chelev, chelev means that chelev is aser, but not the kinukanos, not the small little offshoots that extend off of the gid. So we'll say, let's analyze this. We'll say fundamental machlokes. Everybody agrees there's an Isra of Gid Hanasha because the Torah says so. The shaila is what is covered in the chiyuv of or the Isra of Gid Hanasha. Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Shmuel saying only the edible offshoots of the gid. Ula saying the gid itself. Gufa Amar Rav Sheshes Amar Ravasi Chutin shebechelev asurin. So remember again, let's go back. So remember, we just said before that when it comes to the prohibition of chelev, the chutin, the thin nerves, and the blood vessels in the chelev are asur. But yet again, if you eat them, you are not chayiv, which indicates to us that they are only asur midrabanan. So the Gemara says shebekulya. Ultimately, again, what about in the kidney? What about in the kidney? Shebekulya asurin ve'ein chayav alein. Ultimately, again, if they're in the kidney, so then what? Ultimately, the blood vessels and the nerves are asur, but you're not chayiv for them, i.e. they're asr midrabanan. Lo ben kuya. We will say, what about the white part of the kidney? Rashi says, shebeso hachoretz umispashiv v'lo beso hakuya. So apparently there's white matter inside the ridges of the kidney. Rabbi Chia chad asr v'chad shari. So both a machlokes. Rabbi Chia, one said it's asr, one said it's mutter. So we'll say this actually refers to actual chaylev. This is actual fat inside of the kidney itself. So does the fat inside the kidney have the status of chaylev or not? Machlokes. So Rabba memarit le, Rabbi Yochanan memartet le, Rabbi Asi goim. So we'll say so again. You have on one hand, you have Rabba and Rabbi Yochanan. Rashi says misharish acharav would actively root out this chaylev. Rabbi Asi wouldn't root it out. Rather, what he would do is he would go ahead and take off the fat on the outside of the kidney, but ultimately, again, the fat inside of the kidney, he said was mutter. So, Rabbi, Kavasid Rabbi Asi mistabra. It would appear that Rabbi Asi's shita is most mistaber. It's the chaylev outside of the kidney which is problematic, but the chaylev inside of the kidney ultimately is going to be mutter. Dam Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Huda, Shmuel, both at top of Tzadik Gimel. Chaylev shabaser chofa also. So this is actually an interesting case. So I'll say when we speak about the prohibition of chaylev, as the Torah spells it out, is chaylev which covers meat, which covers what we call flesh. But if you have chaylev which is covered by basar, we'll see an example of that in just a moment, inside of the animal, haloch lamaisa, that chaylev is mutter. Chaylev shabasar chofa also mutter. Chaylev which is covered by meat, ultimately is going to be mutter. So the Gemara says, Alma shalak solim amarachmana v'lo shebesochak solim. Why was that? Because the Torah refers to the chaylev which is on the flanks, right? That's the pasuk. So the chaylev that is on the flanks of the animal, that is the chaylev that is asr. But ultimately, the chaylev that is in the flanks, so to speak, i.e., chaylev that is covered by meat, that will not be forbidden chaylev. Hachenami, we'll say the same thing by the kidneys as well. Sha'ala klayos amarachmana v'lo shebesocha klayos. What type of chaylev is prohibited, Rabbi Osai? Only the chaylev which is on the kidneys, but not the chaylev which is in the kidneys. So Gufer will say, let's analyze this. Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, chaylev shabaser chofa also mutter. So we'll say, so now we've actually put forward a brand new principle in the laws of chaylev. Quite exciting. Good day for us, right? Which is what I will say. It is only the chaylev which is on top of the flesh. When we say on top of the flesh, obviously chaylev is internal. What it means is really on top of the organ, or on top of the piece of the, or on top of that part of the animal. Only that chaylev is asr. Chaylev, which is actually underneath a layer of an organ, or inside of an organ, or underneath a layer of flesh, that type of chaylev will be mutter. The Gemara is using this to explain why the chaylev inside the kidney would be mutter. Chaylev on top of the kidney will be asr al chaylev. The chaylev inside the kidney ultimately again will be mutter. So the Gemara says, is this true? Is this true, Ini? Vam Rabbi Abba, Am Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Hay tarba ditusi masni asr. Yet we learn that what? So the fat, the chaylev that is underneath the loins is going to be asr. But why should that be? After all, again, what did we just learn? If the chaylev is underneath the loins, then that's chaylev that is covered by basar. If it's chaylev covered by basar, then what? Rabbi say, then what? Should be mutter. So what's the pshat? Amar Abaye says, behema b'chaya peruke mifraka. This is actually fascinating. A behema, when it's alive, sometimes its limbs come apart. Well, what does that mean? Take a look at Rashi. Peruke mifraka. Kishehi holeches, sometimes when an animal is walking, evereha noim v'amasnayim pamim shem nimshachim klape mala, v'aksalim nimshachim klape mata, ve'inachid nechasven. So we'll say, I guess without getting into a crash course in animal anatomy, what the Gemara is saying over here is as follows. Sometimes when the animal walks in such a way that chaylev is revealed, right? That there are times when it's not covered by the loins. That's what it means when the limbs come apart. Literally translated, excuse me. Sometimes when the animal moves and its limbs are in different forms of movement, so some things move up, some things move down, and to make a long story short, the chaylev underneath the loins is revealed. So what the Gemara is suggesting over here is as follows. When we say that chaylev that is covered by basar is mutter, that means what? That means chaylev which is always covered by basar. But if as a result of the day-to-day movement of the animal, the chaylev is quote-unquote revealed because of the movement of the limbs of the animal, at times, that's not called covered chaylev. If it's not called covered chaylev, then what? Is going to be asr. So the Gemara says, I'm Rabbi Yochanan. So let's listen to this. Rabbi Yochanan says, Ana, we can relate to this a lot. Lav tabcha ana, I'm not a butcher. V'la bar tabcha ana, I'm not the son of a butcher. But yet, there's one thing I see that unihira, the hachi havu amri by midrasha. But I know, so I'm not a butcher. So Rabbi Yochanan says, I don't understand a lot of the things that you guys are saying, right? And my father wasn't a butcher, so I never heard this kind of stuff at home. But if there's one thing I could tell you is what I heard in the base medrash. And what did I hear in the base medrash? Behema, bless you, behema b'chaya peruke mifraka. That when a behema is alive, right, sometimes its limbs come apart. They both say this is not a reference to sickness. This is a reference just in the general walking of the animal, stuff moves. And when stuff moves, specifically for our purposes over here, the loins which cover the chaylev, sometimes again move in such a way where that chaylev becomes revealed. Because that chaylev becomes revealed, therefore Allah it doesn't have the status of covered chaylev. Because it doesn't have the status of covered chaylev, therefore it will be aser. Good. Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Chaylev sha'al hameses ubeis hakosos asurin va'anosh kares. So we'll say the chaylev that is on, now remember the meses and beis hakosos refers ultimately again to the stomachs of the animal. So the chaylev that is on top of the stomachs is aser, and ultimately again, if you eat it, it is punishable by kares. V'zehu, and this is what the pasuk refers to when it says chaylev sha'al hakerev. So we'll say again, so the chaylev sha'al hakerev, which the Torah speaks about over here, ultimately again is the type of chaylev that is on one of the stomachs of the any of the stomachs of the animal. Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rabbi Shmuel, hay tarba di klibusta. This fat of the klibusta, aser v'anish kares. So we'll say, what's the klibusta? Rashi says, tarba de klibusta. He says, etzem katanu. It is a small bone. Umunach al etzem shekorin hanka. Umuchuber lechulya sa'alya milamala. Ve'alav yesh chilev tachas rosh hamten shekorin lunvil. So we'll say, so this is a very small bone, right, that ultimately sounds like it's at the end of the vertebrae by the tail of the animal. The chaylev that's ultimately, again, on this klibusta is aser, punishable by kares. V'zeu chaylev sha'alak solim. And that's the chaylev that the Torah refers to when it speaks about the chaylev that's on according to the pasuk. Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Chutin shabiyat. What's another interesting case? Chutin, Abba says, we saw before, refers to what? The nerves and the blood vessels. Here, it's really referring much more to blood vessels, as we're going to see. So chut shabiyat, if you have the thin nerves or the blood vessels in the foreleg, what's the halacha? Asurin. Ultimately, again, they are aser. They are aser for consumption. Amar Rab Safra. So we'll say this. Rabbi Yehuda says. So Rabbi Yehuda said this in the name of Shmuel. So Rabbi Safra responds to Rabbi Yehuda, and he said, Rabbi Safra, Moshe. Then I will say, Rabbi Safra was referring to Rabbi Yehuda as Moshe. That's a compliment. Apparently, if you look at Rashi, Talmud Chacham, sometimes it's actually a great system. If you don't know someone's name, you're in the base medrash, hey Moshe, right, Moshe, right? And that's a compliment, right? You're calling someone Moshe, meaning Moshe Rabbeinu. The Talmud Chacham, Moshe. I don't understand. Does the Torah say that you're not allowed to eat meat? So we'll say, what does this mean? So as we're going to see in just a moment, so we'll say, so why? Meaning, why would there be an issue with eating the blood vessels inside of the foreleg? After all, the foreleg is a piece of meat. So why would there be a problem with consuming it? Amar Rava said, Moshe, mi amar Rachmana achol dama. What do you mean? Why you shouldn't be able to eat the blood vessels? Because we'll say, obviously, again, consumption of the blood vessels would, by definition, entail what? Consumption of blood. And does the Torah permit the consumption of blood? And of course not. So what do you do if you want to eat the forelegs, but yet the blood vessels is in there? It's very simple. Chatre, cut it. So also we're going to see again that the way, of course, on a very simple way, that you drain blood is you puncture. right? Puncture. So make a hole, cut the blood vessels, let the blood pour out. Malche, salt it. Now we're gonna spend more significant time speaking about salting in general. Malche, and therefore and once you cut the blood vessels and you salt them, you could even throw them into a pot with other cooked food, i.e., they're ready to go. It doesn't require really any additional processes other than cutting and salting. Amr Rabbi Shmuel, Reish Maya Ba'amsa Boy Grira. So we'll say, what is this? Look at Rashi just a moment. Reish Maya Kishadak Yotzim Min Akeva Tzarech Ligrar Chelev Shalein Oracham. So we'll say this is talking about as follows. This is where the intestines meet the stomach. So there's the first amma of intestines which lead up to the stomach. Apparently, there's chelev around that area. You have to scrape off that chelev before consuming any part of the intestines. So that's Reish Maya Ba'amsa Ba'grera. V'zeu chelev sha'ala dakin. And I will say that's a reference ultimately again to the chelev that is on top of the intestines. We'll say, here we go, blood vessels or nerves that are inside of the hip. Asurin. Ultimately again will be asur. Now, interestingly enough, Chamisha Chute Isbe, Bekafla. We'll say there are 5 different blood vessels or nerves inside of the flanks of the animal. Tlasa miyamina, 3 are on the right side. Vitarti mismala, 2 are on the left side. Tlasa miflitzi l'trei. And 3 of them go ahead and branch off into two independent nerves each. Trei miflitzi, Tlasa. 2 of them go ahead and branch off into 3 branches each. Nafkamina. We'll say, why is this important? It's important to know what each nerve consists of, which each set of blood vessels consist of, in order for what? The shalaf lehu ad dechamimi mishtalfi ve'ilo bai chatuti bashar. So this is actually very interesting. So when you shecht an animal and the flesh is still warm, so the removal of these blood vessels and I guess certain nerves as well is much easier. I guess they just come out easier because the animal is still warm. Masha'en kain, if you wait after the shechit and allow the animal, quote unquote, to cool down, then ultimately, again, you really have to root it out afterwards. So therefore, it's important to know how large each of these vessels or nerves are in order to make sure that you're getting all of it out of the animal. Amar Abaye. So Abaye goes right through. Tim Rabbi Yehuda. Chamisha chute havu. There are 5 different chutin. Tlasa mishum tarba. 3 of them are asur because they are considered to be fat, forbidden fat, like chelev. Utrain mishum dama. And 2 of them are considered to be asur because they are blood vessels, and therefore again are asur out the consumption of dam. So we'll say, what are we referring to over here? Here we go. Ditachli udikafli dikoyasa mishum tarba. So we'll say the nerves. We'll say tachli is the spleen. Kafli are the flanks, kol yasa are the kidneys. So we'll say, so these certain nerves by these particular parts of the body, these are going to be asr al tzchelev, tarba. Diyada, udalua, we'll say, but when it comes to the yad is the foreleg of the animal, dulua is the jaw of the animal, mishum dama. Ultimately, again, the issue with these particular blood vessels is an issue of blood, consumption of dam. Lamai nafkamina, what does this matter? So the Gemara says, Hani dimishum dama, very simply. If the issue with the chutin is one of blood, we'll say blood is a fixable issue. Right? How is it a fixable issue? Drain it. Right? You drain it. So blood is a fixable issue. On the other hand, so michatich luhu umalach lu shapir dami. If you cut it, and if you drain it, it's fit for consumption. Hanach les lehu takanta. We'll say, on the other hand, if something is asr al tzchelev, then what? It has no remedy. There is no way to fix. You can't fix a chelev issue. Chelev is chelev, and it's going to be asr. Dam, on the other hand, absolutely has the ability to be rectified. Hanach lesu takant. Fine. Onav kana v'tem Rabbi Yehuda. Chamisha karmi. This is actually very interesting. There are 5 different membranes on different parts of the animal, says the Gemara. So listen to this. So the Gemara says, Tlasa mishum tarba. 3 of the membranes, ultimately again are asur alt fat, right, because of chelev. V'trei mishum dama. Two of the membranes, Rabbi say, are actually issues of blood. Here we go. Which ones are which? The tachli, the kafli, the kulyasa. So the membranes of the spleen, of the flanks, and of the kidneys, mishum tarba. So that membrane will be aser because it's considered to be chaylev. The bei u demukra. Rabbi say, but the membrane on top of the testicles of the animal. Demukra means the brain. The brain, mishum dama. We'll say ultimately again, these will be aser because of dam, because of blood. So Rabbi Yehuda bar Oshia, havaka kalif leitachla lalevi. So let's listen to this. So Rabbi Yehuda bar Oshia was peeling back the membrane of the tchol, of the spleen for Rav Oshia. So I'm sorry. Rabbi Yehuda bar Oshia, Rabbi Yehuda bar Oshia havaka kalif leitachla lalevi berei drafuna barchia. So ultimately again, Rabbi Yehuda bar Oshia was peeling back, was removing the membrane of the spleen for Levi, the son of Rav Huna bar Chia. Hava kagoim le mi'iloi. So ultimately again, he was removing the upper membrane. Levi said to him, Avrele chavas be tfei. You really should be removing more of the membrane. Look at Rashi, chavas be tfei. Rashi says, shelo haya koflo ela begovho. So he was only removing the upper membrane. B'makom ovyav shumechuber sham lekeres ulachelev va'amar lo klof v'reit al mata. So we'll say, see here what you have over here is Rabbi Yehuda bar Oshia removing the upper membrane of the spleen. He's giving it to Levi, right? Levi's saying you really have to remove more of that membrane. Asa avua, his father came along. Ashkechei amarle. Hachi amar avuha di'imach. This is what your mother's father said. Mishum de Rav, the name of Rav. Umanu, who is that? Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba. Lo asra Torah ela sha'al haddad bilvad. Rabbi will say when it comes ultimately again to the membrane, the Torah only assered the membrane that is on top of the dud. Rashi says over here, dud krum sha'al makom ovyav. We'll say it's not all of the membrane, but rather it's only the membrane over the thicker part of the organ. So a specific part of the membrane that's going to be asra al tzchelev, not the entire membrane. So the Gemara says, Ini, is that so? Vamrav Hanuna, Tana Krum Shalat Chol Aser. We learned that the membrane that's on top of the spleen is going to be aser, ve'ein chayav and alav, but you're not going to be chayiv for it. Which Rabbi say means what? Whenever we say something is aser, but you're not chayiv for it, what does that tell us? It's aser midirabana, not midaraisa. So what's the case? Because we just got finished saying that the membrane on top of the spleen is aser. Sehechidami, ilema sha'al hadad amai ein chayav and alav. If it's the membrane on the thicker part of the organ, so ultimately again, why would you not be chayiv for that? Elo dekuya. Rather, you have to say that we're talking about over here the membrane on top of the kidney. So the Rashi says, lav dekuya shal tchol kulei. I'm sorry, dekulei. Lav dekulei. Rashi says, see, amarle itanya tanya. If that's what you learned, then fine, you could accept that limud. So gufa amrav hamnuna tana krum shalat tchol aser. So we'll say, so again. Really what you see what we're going through over here is, interestingly enough, so we've moved ultimately from a discussion regarding blood vessels and nerves, recognizing that sometimes, while the blood vessels are usually asr al dam, so the nerves that are asr sometimes will be asr al tzchelev. Now begin transition a little bit to the discussion about membranes. Some membranes are asr al dam, and some membranes are asr al tzchelev. Right? Interestingly enough, now we further see that even when the membrane is aser, it's not necessarily all of the membrane that is aser, but it might only be certain parts on certain parts of the particular organ. So let's analyze this. So gufa, Amrav Hanuna, Tana Krum Sha'al Hatchol Aser. So what we learned before that what? The membrane that's on top of the spleen is going to be aser. Ve'in chayav and alav, but yet one is not chayiv for that. So we'll say it's aser midirabanan. Krum sha'al gabi kulya, but ultimately again the krum, right? The membrane that is on top of the kidney, right? We'll say again that was I want to make sure that I corrected that mistake before. When the Gemara ended off when it said Hechidami le mishaladat amayin chayav alav ela dekule. So I've read that wrong, not kulya but dekule. The Gemara ended off by saying that it's referring ultimately again to the membrane on top of the entire spleen, and not to be confused with kulya, which ends with an aleph. So the Gemara says as follows. So krum shal tchol aser. So the membrane on top of the spleen is going to be aser. Vein chayav and alav. Krum shal gabe kulya. The membrane on top of the kidney aser. The ein chayav and alav. Ultimately, again, you will not be chayav for. So what the Braisa seems to be saying over here is what? The membrane, both on top of the spleen and the kidney, will both be asr midrabanan, mutter midaraisa. Vatanya chayav and alav. But one second, we learned elsewhere that what Rabbi say, you are chayiv for consumption of the membrane on top of the spleen and on top of the kidney. So what's happening over here? To which the Gemara says, tchola tcholo kasha. It's not a contradiction when it comes to the spleen. Why not? Ha kineged hadad, ha shelo kineged hadad. Rabbi Shmuel, as we said before, you're only chayiv for consumption of the membrane of the spleen by the thicker part of the spleen, not by the thinner part of the spleen. So when the Braisa said you're chayiv for membrane consumption, that's by the thicker part of the spleen. When we said that you're pater for membrane consumption, or it's asr, but you're not chayiv, meaning asr midrabanan, that's by the thinner part of the screen, by the thinner part of the spleen. Kulya nami lo kasha. So we'll say furthermore again, there is no contradiction by the kidneys either. Why? Habi'ila, habitasa. Ultimately, again, one is referring to the upper part of the kidney, one is referring to the lower part of the kidney, different halachos for different parts of the kidney. Okay? So we'll say now another interesting case. Be'i chalishta. We'll say Be'i chalishta literally means a weakened testicle. What is that referring to? So we'll say this is referring to if the animal sustained some type of, I guess it could be an injury, or it could be that the animal was just born this way, where ultimately, again, the testicles of the animal are still inside of the scrotum of the animal, but they're not attached by the, I don't know what the technical term is, the strands, what's the, okay, the strands, right, good, we'll just go with the strands, right, they're not, good, right, they're not, right, they're not held in place. Okay, there's no need to discuss this amongst yourselves. I got this. Just listen. Just put your attention here, right? So again. So the idea is, we'll say now the chap over here is that the testicles are still there, still inside the scrotum, but obviously they're not functional for the animal because at the end of the day they're not held by the strand in place. So the Gemara, that's called be'i chalishta. Weakened testicles. So we'll say, so listen to this. It's actually very interesting. So the Gemara says, Rav Asi, chad aser v'chad shari. So we'll say, now you're going to see what's fascinating about this. This, we'll say, is now going to be a shayla of Ever min achai, as we're going to see in just a little bit. So we'll say, so one opinion said that it's aser. So we'll say, let's say that you shech the animal, you want to consume it. So we'll say, so one opinion said that it's aser, one opinion said that it's mutter. So let's analyze this. We'll say, take a look at Rashi. Chad aser, mishum Ever min achai. Rabbi says we're going to see the Mandomer that says that it's aser. They're going to say that because essentially the testicles are detached. They're detached, meaning they're not falling off the animal because of the scrotum, but they're effectively detached from the animal. That makes them Eivra min achai. Interestingly enough, because they're Eivra min achai, ultimately again you can't eat them even after the shchita of the animal. So chad aser v'chad shari. Here we go. Man da'aser. We'll say first line Amud Beis. Man da'aser, the one who says that the testicles are aser midalo kabarion hani ever minachayninhu, because there is no way for the testicles to regenerate. In other words, we'll say this is not something the body can fix. It will not regenerate. So because it cannot regenerate, therefore again it's considered to be ever minachai. Man deshari. The other opinion says no. Midelo kamesarchon hanich yusespur. Both say here's what's very interesting. The other opinion will say they're mutter. Why? Because they don't decay. So isn't this interesting? Meaning again, something that's Eivra min achai. So we'll say, for example, let's say an animal has a limb that is pretty much detached but is dangling by a thread. What's going to happen to that limb over time? Right? It's going to decay. The fact that the testicles don't decay indicate to us what? That there is still some level of life force in it. Therefore, again, it's not Eivra min achai, and therefore it's mutter. So what is the opinion who answers the testicles? What does he say? Ultimately, again, about the fact that it doesn't decay. He said that's not a sign of vitality. He says the reason the testicles don't decay is because they're enclosed. Because remember, again, they're still inside the scrotum. They're not exposed to air. That's why they're not decaying. The lack of decay is not an indication of vitality. V'idach, hadalo barion kichishusahu. And the second opinion, it says that they're mutter, will say the reason they don't regenerate, will say, is because obviously there's not enough life force in them, so to speak. They're weakened. But just because they're weakened doesn't mean that there's not some level of life within them. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan Rav Shimon bar Abba. So we'll say, so we're continuing on the same discussion. Hani be'i chashilta. So we'll say, ultimately, again, these, what we call these be'i chashilta. Right? These literally, again, detached testicles. Sharion. So ultimately, again, they're permitted for consumption. That's actually very interesting. So this is Rabbi Yochanan saying to Rav Shimon bar Abba. So they are permitted. Va'at lo techol. But you're not allowed to eat them. You're not allowed to eat them. Why not? Mishum va'al titosh toras imecha. I will say why. But we'll say al titosh toras imecha is the pasuk that's used. The pasuk that's used to speak about the power of minhag, right? Shema b'ni musar avicha va'al titosh toras imecha. What is the Torah of your mother? The Torah of your mother means your minhagim. So we'll say, this is actually very interesting. So Rabbi Yochanan says to Rav Shimon bar Abba, the halacha is that these detached testicles are permitted for consumption. You can't eat it because you come from a place where the minhag is not. Take a look at the top Rashi. Al titosh toras imecha minhag makomcha. This is your minhag makom. Sha'atumi Bavel. You're from Bavel. B'sham noagin isura da'afligu ba Rabbi Ami Rabbi Asi. You're from Bavel, and I will say in Bavel the minhag was not to eat this type of this part of the animal. That you have these detached testicles. So ultimately, again, the minhag in Bavel was don't eat them. Therefore, again, even though technically it's mutter, you have your minhag, you're not allowed to eat it. Amar Ma'abar Ravashi. So Ravashi comes along and he says, "Honey, be'i digadja." So we'll say here we have be'i digadja means literally again the testicles of a young animal. So gedi, we'll say the gedi is nondescript over here. So the be'i digadja. So listen to this. Ad tzlosin yomin sharian below klipa. So let's remember again. When we were in this membrane discussion, so one of the things that has to have its membrane removed are testicles. So we'll say, so what? So now the Gemara asks Gemara discusses, if you have a young animal, for the first 30 days after the animal is born, sharion, you could consume the testicles below klipa without removing the membrane. Rashi says, Tlasin yom mishnolad sharion below klipa sakrum dakati lo nafish damei livla be'evarav gadja lavdavka. So let's listen to this. So the idea is when it comes to the testicles, the issue of the membrane is not chelev, but rather again is dam. So the Gemara explains that for the first 30 days, within the first 30 days, the blood has not yet become really absorbed in the testicular membrane. So because of that, if you consume the testicles, you do not have to go ahead and remove the membrane. However, again, mikan ve'elech, what happens after 30 days? The Gemara says it depends. I azra'an asurin. If the animal is capable of producing zera, right? The animal is capable of producing semen. So ultimately, again, so the membrane will be asur. Ve'ilo azran, but if it's not capable of producing zera, sharion. Then ultimately, again, the membrane will be permitted. How do you know? Menaya adinon. So the Gemara says it's very simple. I ispuhu shuraiki sumki asirin. If ultimately, again, I will say, if the testicles have red streaks in them, then again, that's an indication of their vitality, and therefore, again, you assume that it can produce zera. If it can produce zera, then the membrane will be asur. Les bushuraiki sumki, if there are not red streaks, that's an indication that it can't yet produce zera. Therefore, we assume the blood is not absorbed in the membrane, and the membrane will be mutter. Good. Weiter. Umtzi. We'll say umtzi means a piece of meat which is very red. We'll discuss again in greater depth. Bei, we'll say bei means the testicles. Mizriki means the blood vessels of the neck of the animal. So we'll say, what's the status of these items? Pligi Ravacha v'Ravina. So Ravacha and Ravina argue about the status of these items. Says the Gemara, B'chala Torah kula Ravina l'kula Ravacha l'chumra. Generally, again, in almost all matters of halacha, so Ravina, right? Ravina is more megal, right? Ravina is megal, Ravacha is machmir. V'hilchasa ki Ravina l'kula. And generally, where there is a machlokes Ravina Ravacha, we generally follow Ravina l'kula lebar mehanitlas. I will say, except in these three cases, the Ravacha l'kula, the Ravina l'chumra, where Rav Acha is, right, is megal, Ravina is machmir, v'hilchasa ki Rav Acha l'kula. And the halacha follows Rav Acha, and we are lenient. I will say, now, we have absolutely no idea what we're talking about over here. Halacha of what? Right? Meaning, what halacha we're referring to, what leniencies we're referring to. So here we go. I'm going to break up each of these cases. Umsa da'asmek. So both say, the interesting part is you have a piece of meat which is very red. And I both say, if it's very red, then what do I assume is happening over here? It's saturated with blood. So I'll say, so what do I need to do over here? So what do I do? Like I said before, we're going to spend significant time about the halachos of salting. We'll get into this, but now the Gemara is just kind of teasing it out a little bit. So I have this piece of meat which is very red. I have to be concerned with excessive blood absorption. So what do I do? Cut a piece of meat, mocha, salt it, and after you do that, you could use it without any kind of reservation. In other words, you can throw it into a pot of food and you're ready to go. So let's listen to this. What happens if you put the piece of meat on a spit? Rashi says, so let's listen to this. Let's say I don't cut the piece of meat, I don't salt it, but I put it on a spit and I put it inside the oven. Is that enough to take care of the issue? So doiv dama. That also is enough to draw out the blood. So I'll say the act of roasting it, right? The act of roasting it on a spit is also enough to draw out the blood. What about agmure? This is actually very interesting. Agmure, I will say, is ultimately, again, roasting it on coals. I will say now, this is different than the spit case. In the spit case, you have put it on a spit and therefore what? Suspended it over fire. In that case, everyone's agreeing that what's going to happen about say the heat causes the blood to drip out. In this case, I'm actually putting the meat on coals. I'm putting it on coals. I haven't cut it. I haven't salted it. I'm just putting it right on coals. What's the status there? So the Gemara says, Agmuri, pligi baravachav ravina. Both say that's a machlokes. Chad amar mishav shivi. One says, yes, that works to draw out the blood. The chad amar mitzmas tsamsi. Both say, others actually say, no, that causes the meat to constrict and contract, which actually locks the blood in, does not go ahead and remove it. So we'll say that v'chein be'i v'chein mizriki, and I will say this is true ultimately again for the cases of the testicles as well as the blood vessels in the neck. So we'll say what comes out of here is as follows: that Allah, so all of these items have to have the blood drained. How do you drain the blood? Simplest way: cut it, salt it. Otherwise, spit it. I'm making that into a verb, right? Spit it, right? Put it on a spit and roast it. That also draws out the blood. Putting it on coals, directly on coals, that seems to be a machlokes case. Does that go ahead and draw out the blood, or does that cause it to constrict? So we'll say that we passing, by the way, putting it on coals causes the blood to come out. That's actually an effective method as well. So that's how you remove blood for these three items. Reisha bekivsa. So what happens if you have a lamb head? Right? You want to have a lamb head. You want to eat lamb. So what do you do in terms of draining blood? So the Gemara says, Osve abeis hashchita. So I'll say what you do is you essentially cut off the head, right? And you put it down kind of standing up. You put it down on the beis hashchita, on the neck. And as a result, gravity does the work. And dayiv dama v'shari. The blood will be drawn out, and ultimately the head will be mutter. Atzdodin, I will say, but if you lay the head down on its side, that actually will not work. And instead, mikva kafi va'aser. The blood congeals inside of the head, and you're going to be stuck. Osve anechire. Ultimately, again, about say if you placed it on the nostrils, meaning this is talking about how you put the head down. Let's say you put. So the ideal way is you stand the head up. So literally the head, the beis hashchita is sitting on the table, and the head is standing up. That's the best way to draw out the blood. What happens if you position it with its nostrils facing down? As long as you insert something into the nose of the animal to keep the nasal passage open, the blood drains out that way, and that will be fine. V'ilo, but if you did not insert something into the nasal passageway, Asr, we assume that the blood congeals inside of the head and the animal will be asr. Ikar de Amri. Also, there's an alternate version of this. Anechire va'abeis hashchita. I will say, in this alternate version, so both positioning the animal, placing it down on its nostrils, or placing it just right side up, right on the beis hashchita on the neck, that's going to be fine. Doiv. That causes the blood to drain. Atzdodin. What happens if you place the animal ultimately again, you place the head on its side? Idatzbei. So I'll say if you punctured it, right? If you punctured it, right? Then what? Ibdatzbei midi shari. So we'll say if you puncture it and keep the hole open, then fine, the animal will drain that way. V'ilo, but if not, asir. ultimately, again, the animal will be usher because the blood congeals inside. Amar Rabbi Shmuel, Shnei Gidinheim. We'll say there are two different parts to the gid. Right? When we speak about gid hanasha, there are really two different nerves. Pnimi samach la'etzem aser. Also, we had this in yesterday or 2 days ago, 3 days ago. So pnimi, the inner gid, which is the one that is closer to the bone, will be aser. The chayav and alav, and that's when you're chayav for consumption. Chitzon samach labaser, the outer gid, which is closer to the flesh, aser is aser midrabanan ve'in chayav and alav. But right to that contradicts. It says pnimi samach labaser. But we learned that the inner gid is the one that is closer to the flesh. That's not a contradiction. Amar Rav Acha, Amar Rav Kana, ikludin miklid. I will say there are parts where there are parts ultimately again where the inner gid, which is normally closer to the bone, kind of moves around a little bit and therefore comes closer to the surface, comes closer to the basar, and literally translated fits into the basar like a key into the flesh. So although normally what we call the gid hapnimi is the one that is closer to the bone, there are times where as part of the trajectory of, or not trajectory, but the placement of that gid, it in fact is closer to the flesh. But we said before that the gid hachitzon, the outer gid, is the one that is closer to the bone. That contradicts what we said before, that the outer gid is closer to the flesh. What it means is, I will say, when the butcher removes, right, literally takes apart the limbs, that part where the butcher detaches the leg from, I guess what we'll call the torso of the body, in that place, in that particular place, it appears that the gid, the chitzon gid, is the one that is closer to the bone. So we'll say essentially what the Gemara is saying is like this: we define the gidin by what we call the majority of the space they occupy. So, for example, the gid hapnimi, the inner gid, is called the inner gid because it's closer to the bone. Even though what? There are, and the gid hachitzon, the outer gid, is called the gid that is closer to the flesh. Even though what? There are certain parts where the inner gid is actually closer to the flesh than the outer gid, and there are parts where the outer gid is closer to the bone than the inner gid, just because of the way they weave throughout the animal. Good? So let's say the Gemara goes weiter. Itmar, here we go, an interesting case. Tabach shenimtza chil v'achra. We'll say, here we go. It's actually fascinating. So we'll say, if you have a butcher who they're inspecting his meat and they find that the butcher did not go ahead and, they find that he didn't fully remove the chalev. Now we'll say part of the job of the butcher is to properly remove chalev. We inspect his work afterwards, and what do we find? He didn't remove all of the chalev. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Kisaora. So we'll say, so what's the halacha? So Rabbi Yehuda says, if we find even a barley kernel's amount, ultimately again of chalev, he's in trouble. Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yochanan says, no, you have to find at least the kizayis. Amra Papa Velo Pligi. They're not arguing. Watch this. Kan la halkoso, kan la avro. They will say one is to give him malchus, one is to fire him. If we find the kizayis of chalev, he's getting malchus. We'll say this is just like a pub. This is what keeps the butchers honest, right? You're going to get malchus if we find a kizayis of chalev, but you're going to lose your job if we find even a kisaora, a barley corn's worth of chalev in the meat. So we'll say, so Marzutra, so the Amr Marzutra, kisaor b'makom echad, kizayis afilu begimel beis begimel makomos. Marzutra says, by the way, he's only in trouble if we find the barley corn's amount in one place, but even if we find a kizayis amount of chalev in a number of different places, he is still going to be in trouble. And I will say, the hilchasa, what's the halacha? La kozo bekizayis, if we find ultimately again a kizayis of chalev, we will give him malchus. We give the butcher malchus, the avro bekisaora. But ultimately, again, if we go and we find even a barley corn's worth of chalev inside the animal, we will fire the butcher from his job. All right, so we'll have to stop over here. We'll pick up at the 2 dots in Mir Hashem tomorrow. Shkoyach.